Hello, welcome to Conversations with Kate. I'm your host, Kate Jagedi, and today I am delighted to be joined by the absolutely gorgeous and multi-talented Akeisha Pagan. Akeisha, thank you for joining me, first of all.
Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We've had a little bit of off-camera drama this afternoon, but it's fantastic to be able to talk to you. Before we start the conversation, Akeisha, I just want to read to the audience from your company website. So something about Akeisha and what she does. And then I will, of course, put a link to Akeisha's business website underneath the video. But Akeisha Pagan is a financial credit education and tax consultant with over 15 years in the financial field. Her background in organizational behavior and accounting makes her an ideal guide. Akeisha is fueled by her passion for understanding the nuances of the ever changing financial scene. She considers herself a forever student, eager to both build on her academic foundations in financial education and business coach mentoring, as well as staying in tune with the latest digital marketing strategies through continued coursework and professional development. Her hunger for knowledge and determination inspires Akeisha to turn information into action and contributes to all of her successes. Akeisha believes that mindfulness in all aspects of any workspace is key to success and is a tenet she lives out through her interests in health and wellness, meditation, singing and writing. Fantastic. What a wonderful resume, Akeisha. We're going to talk about different things in this conversation, your business, your work, your background and family life, and just how the ideas of thought causation, the law of assumption, the things that you believe, how it infuses all aspects of your life. So, for those of you who don't know, I study, teach, live, breathe the teachings of Neville Goddard, which is a radical philosophy that really puts us in the driving seat of our lived experience. And this is something that Akeisha and I share in common. It's how we kind of came together on social media. So let's start, Akeisha, by talking about Neville Goddard and how you first came to know about him. What was it about his teachings that made you think, you know what, I'm going to look a bit deeper into what this man has to say?
Yeah. So, uh, years ago, I was going through a divorce, a bad divorce, and I had just lost my best friend and brother from congestive heart failure, and a heart transplant that didn't take. And I was in a really bad place and using basically, at the time, a crutch, and using alcohol and different things like uh, different outlets or what have you that I became obsessed with a little bit. But I knew that that wasn't, that crutch couldn't hold for me for a long time. And I knew that my brother, for instance, wouldn't have wanted me to live my life, in such sadness and depression and things. But he Neville really did save my life, I can say. And learning and reading and watching just everything and delving so far into whatever he had available that's still out there, has truly opened my mind about my imagination, how I'm like you said, a thought leader, a creator of my own world and existence. And it has really helped me in so many aspects of my life, and just to be able to build my business from years ago, and to be able to pick my life back up together and use my mind, my wonderful human imagination to do that.
That's absolutely fantastic. What an inspirational story. And we spoke a bit before recording this interview about the fact that you were aware of this aspect of yourself, even as a young person, as a teenager. Can you give me an example of the kind of thing you used to do, how you used to use your imagination? Because that's a huge part of what Neville teaches.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I remember just as a teenager learning how to drive, and I knew I could drive a regular car basically, but it was a stick shift that I just died to learn to drive. My stepfather wanted to teach me. He had this brand new truck, and I wanted to impress my friends, of course, but I could not for the life of me get down a manual transmission. So I would, I had driven for a few weeks and I just really couldn't pick it up. And I was like, I don't know why I'm the only one on the planet not able to pick that up. But so I remember at one evening, and I specifically told myself that I was going to do this, is to go to bed, and I thought about it beforehand, and I literally traced out in my mind's eye, all of the gears basically, and I fell asleep in that state, as now I know, it's called. And I woke up the next day gearing ready to go, to drive, and eager, and my stepfather just said, okay, let's go one more day. And I drove perfectly, just all over the city. And it blew my mind at that point. And I'm going, now, how could I, from one day, not be able to do something, and the very next day, with just going to bed, imagining it and seeing my own hand in third person doing, the actual actions? Um, from then on, I used it in just about anything that I could think of: test taking, um, vacations, my wedding, all those kind of things. But I didn't know that there was that it was actually a force that was myself that was actually controlling it. And then, after learning Neville and him putting the words to, as you said, to what I was actually already doing, and we have been doing as from infancy and birth, with using our imaginations to create our own world and existence. It just truly fascinated me. But um, yeah, that's what I have been using, definitely. And then teaching my children, of course, my two wonderful, beautiful, talented children. Um, their imaginations are just spectacular. So yeah, just infusing all of those kind of things into them as well.
That's absolutely fascinating. And I meet so many different people who know about this philosophy, whether they know about Neville or not. And I'm always struck by people like you for whom this sort of thing came naturally.
Mhm.
And it seems that what Neville has done for them is to give characterization to what they're doing, or to put language to what they're doing. But this was something that they did automatically. I
Mhm.
just want to know, were you aware that you were doing something consciously? Where did you get the idea to use your imagination in this way?
So I had always been a very imaginative child. I didn't have imaginary friends or anything, but I was very introverted and shy. Um, and my imagination actually was my best friend. When I started learning sign language, my name was actually my first letter of my name, Akeisha, and which means dreamer. So that just everybody had known me as a very imaginative, creative, outlet person. Um, but I didn't really, like you said, I didn't have the words to put to how it was happening, but I knew it worked. And every time I did it, I would fall asleep. Um, Sometimes I knew that when I dreamed about bad things, that I would purposely go to sleep dreaming about those things. Um, when I felt bad about something, things would turn out bad the next day. So what I got into the habit of doing is falling asleep in a better mood and better thoughts. And sure enough, the next day, the next few days, something else would happen. And I'm kind of attributing that to an isn't it wonderful kind of mentality that I've just always had. And I always have said, um, everything is always working out for me. And I would go to sleep thinking that same phrase, even as a young child. And now I'm able to see, wow, that's actually what the teachings of Neville were basically, all about.
That's absolutely incredible. I'm just enjoying your story. And for those who might not be familiar, Isn't It Wonderful is a concept that we find occurs in Neville's teaching. It's about a frame of mind, a perspective, a happy outlook, a happy expectation. And I love the fact that you say that this is something that you see your children using as well. I'm sure it must be really encouraging to you. And I'm sure they're a testament to you as a mother. So one of the things we've spoken about before is the fact that we share in common a real close bond with our mothers. I've spoken about my mother. you say you're also very, very close to your mother. In my case, my mum taught me all of the things that I know today. What sort of things did your mother teach you that that you hold dear, and those things that you are passing on to your own children?
Sure. So her faith and her belief in God and His wonderful creations and everything around us is just absolutely a miracle. From the birth and conception to death, unfortunately, but all of the entire aspect of our world and life. She had us look at little details of everything, and literally her philosophy was almost like a stop and smell the roses. Even though she was always so busy, she was a single mom, um, but her storytelling and her imagination were fascinating to me. My grandmother was the same way. And so I think that's probably where it trickled down, where both of them have had, they had tremendous faith, and then I passed it on to my children. But I take it in all aspects of my life, even if I, may stray away a little while, I always come right back to it because that's a backbone of my very existence. And I appreciate Neville having that intertwined into his teachings as well.
That's so beautiful. One of the things I really love about the way you describe this philosophy, which for some people is really out there, you describe it in a way that makes it that it really comes across that this is a normal, natural part of your life. And I find that interesting, Akeisha, because people who think about those who believe this sort of thing think they walk a very specific path in life, that if you are someone interested in consciousness or spirituality, that's your world. You live in a tent somewhere chanting. But here you are, you're an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman. And so what I would love you to share with the audience now is how you find your beliefs support your business life and support the work that you do.
Certainly. First of all, my belief keeps my conscience always clear, that I'm aware that no matter what action I take in helping people build their business, helping them with their any kind of aspect of financial life, I'm always conscious of them as persons as a whole. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm you know, a lot of businesses or business practices are unethical, unfortunately. And I'm always mindful that that's my whole goal all the time, is to be always upstanding with them and always, truthful in all of my kind of business practices. So I know that my clients appreciate that in me, and I take a well-rounded approach, a wholeness to my business, where not to even get too personal with them or what have you, but I do have that kind of personality. I've been told that I am approachable and easy to talk to. So they tend to open up to me even a lot more about their finances, which is why I'm able to do the personal coaching and mentoring and business mentoring and things like that. But that my background has helped me totally with my conscience, that it's always remains clear that I can be the best upstanding entrepreneur that I can be.
That's absolutely fantastic. And so do you find in your work you are ever able to introduce clients to the sorts of ideas that you stand by? I mean, this is something that infuses your life. And I know it's not always easy, particularly in a professional setting or in a corporate setting, to say to someone, your imagination can play a role in this. Have you ever had occasion to introduce people to the sorts of things that you believe in?
Yeah, and while I may not say, call it a certain thing or give it a title, I really walk them through steps, and I meticulously go through their entire background as much as I can, and learn about them as persons, and then their needs and wants. Because a lot of things that people are wanting in their finances has a lot to do with their emotions, that is really tied to childhood, actually, and the things that they've learned and the patterns that they've had. And so what I do is I try to create and help them in my way to learn how to manifest different ways, different better ways that they can, incorporate their finances in their lives. Um, so I work out plans for them, and it's kind of a weekly and a monthly kind of thing when they come to me, and then I actually have them, because there are a lot of times they come very stressed. Finance is a very very stressful thing, especially now in this time, and they appreciate the fact that I am able to talk them through or talk them down on a lot of things. And it's using my mindfulness and using my ability to reach into them, basically, to help them to see that if whatever you're thinking about today, you're going to manifest the next day, or in the future. And especially about money. You have to change your concept about money and how you feel about money, and your finances, and then everything else will fall into place. Leave it in its little box where it's supposed to be, because it really is just a tiny little fraction of our real existence. So it might seem a little out there, but it tends to work with my clients, and they appreciate it.
I can't imagine how fortunate your clients must be able to speak to someone who has that sort of expanded view. And I love the fact that you use the word feel, how we feel about money. A lot of people ask me about money at the time of recording this interview. We're coming out of this COVID-19 pandemic, and people are facing lots of different pressures. And one of the things that I try to encourage people to do, because I'm not a business person at all, I'm not business minded in any kind of way. I don't give specific advice when it comes to finances. I can just help people to make certain adjustments in the way that they feel. But what I would like to talk to you about, I'm sure I finished that point. I don't know, my mind wanders sometimes. What I would love to talk to you about, as somebody who has all of this expertise in the financial sector, is sort of what sort of complaints, what sort of worries do people have when they come to you about their finances, and what sort of advice do you give them? Now, I don't want you to talk about the specific professional advice that you give to your clients. I'm talking about how you would approach it as someone who is aware of the power of imagination. Does that make sense? Just how would you be, in what ways would you approach the subject? How would you encourage them to feel differently about money, for example?
So especially now, it's really just trying to get them to focus on right now,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then helping them to see that it's really not the end. Just because we can only see what's happening right now, there's such a bigger picture, and what's set right now, or what is happening now, is not set in stone for the future. So, and I tell them, anything that's happened to you in the past, anything with money, we can you're literally can always change it by using your mind and your imagination and your manifestation, these manifestation techniques that I bring to the table, um, to show them that it's not really a source of a panic. Even though we're living amidst these times, I talk to hundreds of clients all the time, during the week, and um, it's assuring, I guess, when they speak to me and are able to show them my vision of what I have for them, so that they can grasp onto it as well.
I really love that, regaining focus. That's so important. It helps us to regain a sense of equilibrium and control of the situation, because I think when our minds are heading off in lots of different directions, that's where the emotional instability creeps in. So I love that, coming back to the now, to the present. As Neville Goddard himself says, it's only in the now and in the present that we have authority over anything that we're going through. If we're worrying about the future, worrying about the past, we're not going to be able to get to where we want to get to. Fantastic. So moving on now, Akeisha, to you speak about the fact that finance, yes, it's your work, it's your business, but it's only an aspect of us. We have these lives that are affected in many different ways. And one of the things I want to touch on is the social unrest in the United States. Not to go too much into the specifics of that, but how do you, living in the United States, in the midst of all the turmoil how do you regain your composure? How do you regain, or not regain, how do you maintain rather your composure? How do you stay calm? How do you encourage your children to stay calm? Can you just give some examples from your own experience about the way you approach these sorts of issues?
Right. I mean, this is such an unprecedented time that we're living in, just from the beginning of the year till now. And I am so grateful for the people who are sympathetic and empathetic to our plight, whether it's here or, I have a family member in England who's a police officer and his wife, and they're feeling it too, and as I'm sure you can see all around the world. Um, but I have learned that I can't take it all in all the time, um, because and then I had to also learn after seeing one of your videos that I can't take on the world myself and try to manifest it better, for everyone. I can only do that for my world, my people in my awareness. And it seems to have been working where everybody has become a little calmer, especially when they're around me, because I don't let it overtake my life. I'm definitely aware that everything is happening um, in the civil unrest and what have you, and I know that even things that are I've been speaking to my mother about, and my children. It's almost like we're reliving that past that has happened, and it's bringing up a lot of different emotions that even my mom, I didn't even know that she had, she's been speaking about when she was a little girl, and she's been but really the past is, since it is a memory, we can also create the future because it can still live in our mind as a memory, because we can create it for the future. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that correctly,
You
but
are
yeah.
perfectly, don't worry.
Okay. But as far as the civil unrest in the country goes, I can see the heartbreak and everything, and I feel it. It's very prevalent, but I don't let it overtake me, and you cannot let that just live in your mind and your imagination. What I see though is that better future, and I know that it's possible, and I can, because I can see it. So if I can imagine it, it's a reality, and I just want whomever I speak to understand that kind of thing, to be able to see something better, and it definitely has to come to pass, because and even if we can get, even just my circle or your circle or whomever we speak to about, I know it's not like it sounds like a kumbaya kind of thing, but I really feel like if you don't fester on those kind of things, that it won't continue to happen. It can't. So I wish that I could do more in that sense, to be out there. I just wish that I could do more.
Fantastic. I really love your voice, the way you talk. It's so soothing and reassuring, but also what I'm getting from you is that focus and that openness to learn more and more and more. You said, as I read from your company website, that you're a forever student, and I can see that that's something that you apply to your life in general, not just your business. It's, yes, we're focused, we're understanding what's going on, we're learning from this moment, but we're being careful about the perspective, we're being careful about the lens through which we're viewing the world and viewing the situation. You made a very, very important point that we can't solve all the world's problems. I often say myself that we're not here to solve the world's problems. The world is a schoolroom, as Neville himself says.
Mhm.
We are here to make ourselves better. And it's, even though things can be group think and group activity, we still need to take that moment to focus on what we're doing, what we are contributing to what's going on. So thank you for bringing that up. Moving now, Akeisha, I did say to the audience that you are multi-talented. I know that you enjoy writing and singing. Can you talk a bit about the artistic side of your life and your work?
Well, I did have a voice scholarship to a local school here, Rollins College. And so I was actually operatically trained with my voice. It has always just come natural, one of those other kind of things. And it helped me get out of my shyness, being able to perform. And I've passed it on to my children, apparently. They're actually self-taught and piano and guitar. They give me goosebumps, just their perfect pitch and their harmonization skills that I don't even have. Um, I just listen to them, and I've always imagined growing up having a house filled with music. And I remember sitting there when they first learned how to play, and they came to me with the song they wrote when they were little girls, and I had tears in my eyes because that was another fulfillment. That's one of the most beautiful things I could have ever imagined, and it fills our house constantly. We were just singing last night. We'll just turn on a karaoke and but yeah, that our talent. I want to do more performances when I do have time. But yeah, the local theaters I think I used to shoot for the stars when I was younger, but yeah, this is good. And I said my kids are my best fans. They're my most loyal fans that I have now. So, but yeah, maybe in the future it might, I might be able to perform again, and I would love it because it makes me feel so alive to be able to do that. And it brings joy, when your voice can actually do that for people.
I absolutely love that. One of the things I've been seeking to do with these conversations that I've been having, Akeisha, is just to let the world know that this community of people who are conscious, for lack
Hmm.
of a better phrase, people who believe that, yes, we possess the power to direct our own experience of life, are not just, as you say, the kumbaya or people that, nothing wrong with the kumbaya crowd and the people who kind of live in tents in the wilderness or whatever, but to see that they are successful business people, they inhabit the world of politics or law, or like yourself, the financial sector. So it's absolutely fantastic to hear you speaking about your life, and
Mhm.
yet you have this aspect of yourself that's so important and so valuable to you. So before we wrap up the conversation, Akeisha, I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning of the conversation. We were talking about how you first came to know about Neville Goddard, right? So for a lot of people, they remember the first thing they read. They remember the something from his teachings that really transformed their life. Going back to what we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
what could you say? What teaching was it? What book was it that really cemented your relationship with Neville?
Definitely, I'd have to say his story of the young lady who was stuck, I believe, in the United States, but she was alone. She was very sad. I believe her family she was, all alone here in this country, but she had an aunt who had died or passed away and left her money, and she had nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
So I really take that, and live kind of vicariously through that story where she was I believe it was a trolley or a train, and um,
Yeah.
she imagined herself on the sea traveling back to her homeland of Samoa, and it was raining, and she felt the rain on her face, but imagined them as being the salt spray of the sea. And
Yes.
I have literally I remember, having those kind of feelings, crying in the rain, crying, and even metaphorically, feeling all alone, and but being able to imagine yourself in a whole other situation and seeing the end of what's happening, even though you're in a certain situation that you don't want to be in, and then eventually where the grandmother passed, even though that was a bad situation with the aunt, and left her the money to
Mm-hmm.
go home. It just it fascinated me that whole story, and I've listened to that story so many times. But it just gives me hope where you're just not, even though you feel stuck, that's not the end. You
Yes.
create the end.
Sorry. Continue. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, that's it.
It's absolutely wonderful. I think that's a magic that Neville Goddard had that I haven't found anywhere else. And it's the relatableness of the stories that he tells to illustrate the way that this power works, and that it's not something that's pie in the sky. It's something that affects our lives in so many different ways. So talking about the United States, for me, an absolutely incredible place, full of energy, lots of different experiences. And people all have their unique take on life in the United States. But for me, looking on the inside, I think sometimes, is America as crazy as it appears to be? Is it really this violence? Is it really this dangerous? It seems so wonderful and exciting all at the same time. So in your own life, how do you use Neville's teachings, if you call it that, whatever it is that you use, your own belief system, just to navigate life in the United States?
So, and using my Bible trained education, and in combination with the teachings of Neville, I've been able to navigate my life. I mean, it just fascinates me, the things that have become easy for me to do, to manifest a brand new car this year, to manifest, you know, peace after my divorce, even though it dragged on for years. But learning now that I kind of created that, myself, and I hadn't realized. And just as quickly as I created it, I was able to make it better for myself. The situation has completely changed, and for the better. And I never thought that it would. And I mean, just almost instantly. And because I was going through that turmoil with still just a, long, unfortunately dragged out custody issues. I said, why am I applying Neville and my Bible trained conscious, or teachings, to every other aspect except for that, where that was the only aspect of I feel bad all the time about that certain situation. And as soon as I applied it to that, almost a month later. And also I enjoy writing down, and not necessarily journaling, but just writing a statement of what I expect to happen, already happened in the past, and then writing it and forgetting about it. And I remember going back through some of my, writings, because I've got journals full of those. Every day I write something. And back in where one of my mentors years ago, when I was a teenager, had me write up a little notebook. This is it. And so it's kind of, worn and raggedy right now, but it says, "Ask God." And what she had us do is write our prayers, not necessarily, the word for word prayer, but what our prayer was about, maybe for the day or what have you. Write a date on the left side of the top of the paper and leave the top of the other date blank. Because what she believed, and now talking about it, before I got, on the conversations with Kate, I said she was the manifester, and who knows, who taught her, where she learned it from. But it was, I can flip through all the pages, and I have the date that I asked about it, imagined and prayed about it, and the date that it happened. And every single thing has come to pass. And it just has helped me in so many ways in just maneuvering through my daily life. But that's something that I do daily, that I've been teaching my children. You have to imagine a better way and an end. And I said, well, and I have one daughter that, gets a little anxiety at the same age that I had it, started getting it, years ago. And I help her because she's an artist, she's, graphic design artist. And she takes her graphic design notebooks, or her artistry notebooks that I've bought her, and it literally will take her out of a moment. Because I remember, I believe I was speaking to you first about our mind is like a television or radio,
Yeah.
where we have channels. And what I learned how to deal with my anxiety, when I was younger, and to stay off of medication, which could possibly lead you to be a zombie, is what I felt like. But of course, if you need the medication, you certainly you should take it. But I was able to tell her, if you don't like something that's on TV, what do? You turn the channel. And just as soon as that, she was like, okay, and it actually has worked, but she also says something about my voice that helps too. But and just the reassurance that anybody needs that but I've been able to reassure myself because of learning, from the teachings of the Bible and teachings of Neville as well, and combining those, it just helps me to navigate daily life, and I couldn't imagine surviving without it, actually.
Oh my God. Now, as you're talking, I can say, yes, I agree with your daughter. There's something really wonderful about your voice. I'm
Huh?
actually really curious to hear you sing now.
Yeah.
But Akeisha, it's been absolutely incredible talking to you. I'm going to wrap up this conversation by talking about something that can be a sensitive subject for some people. So, in a country like the United States, for example, everybody's looking at the United States right now, even though there's unrest everywhere. But there's this belief for some people that life is okay only for certain groups. And so, what I'm trying to do with my work, what I wanted to do with these conversations, and you have done wonderfully, is demonstrated that look, life can look the way you want it to look. I just want to get your views on how you would encourage someone who believes that, no, this is unfair, this is it. I mean, we know that there is an injustice. We know that things aren't fair. Life isn't generally fair. But I say to people, look at it in terms of this is an opportunity for you to discover what you are capable of. And actually, in your imagination, there is no limit to what you can do or become. So, just to wrap up this conversation, how do you encourage those who really believe that, you know what, this is it for me? I don't know where to go from here. How do you get them to start to see that they can have something different too?
Hmm. So, and I see it in older people, the older clients that I have, and family members, as well as younger ones I speak to, my children's friends, and my nephews and nieces, and I see a lot of hopelessness, and I think that is why, unfortunately, this Gen Z, or iGen, I think they call it, is it's a lot of sadness and depression. Mental illness is just
Mm,
widespread, and suicide. And it breaks my heart every time I hear my daughter speak of her friends that are unfortunately institutionalized or on a lot of medication or different medications for different things, and then have been suicidal because they're living in a world, not just this what's happening now, but we've got kids that are going to schools who are afraid to go in because we don't know, what kind of tactic, what kind of person is going to come in today and
mm,
shoot up the school or what have you. And in listening to my children and the fears that they have, it's overwhelming. I can see why it's overwhelming to them, but with the anxiety and me trying to help them based on the things that I've been learning, with Neville, I'm able to steer them in a way that helps them know that this isn't all there is. You know, the human imagination has brought the rest of the world to where we are now, and it is a collective of what we've manifested, unfortunately, at this point. But they're able to speak to their friends, and I hear them. One of them is a big debater, and she loves it. I'm not that kind of a person. I kind of agree to disagree and just kind of walk away. But they're able to get with their friends, and then I even sit with some of them as well, and it just fascinates me that they are in a dark, such a dark place these days, especially the young ones. And when we always say, oh, our children are the future, and it looks really bleak for them, but it doesn't have
mm,
to.
exactly.
I tell them that it's not apocalyptic, it's not all the things that we see on the movies. And even if something like that happens, it doesn't mean that it's permanent. So I just always have to remind myself and them that nothing is constant. Nothing remains the same. It doesn't have to, and it's always up to us to change that.
What a wonderful encouragement. Akeisha, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We've touched on a lot. And I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with Kate. As I've said to the audience, I am going to put a link to your website in the description box below. So if people want to contact you, they're free to do so, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But also, Akeisha, sorry, excuse me. I don't know if you have any closing remarks. If you don't, we can wrap up here. I've thoroughly enjoyed speaking to you and I've learned a lot. So thank you. Do you have any closing comments?
Well, I just thoroughly look forward to this for many weeks now, to speak with you. I've enjoyed all of your videos thus far. Um, and your book really it opened my mind further because I felt such a connection to you. And I'm pretty sure, anybody who's had the chance to read it, and then and I've told you this before, mentioned it to you before, but to find someone on such a not the same path, but a similar path as myself, as being, a woman of color, and especially in these days and times, to have that camaraderie with someone that's at your stage, and level in life. It's so reassuring that I'm not alone in, my thinking, even though, Neville is a worldwide kind of thing. And, you can look him up and you can see all of the blogs and things online, but to have someone that's like me is just one of the most reassuring things that I've found, in the most recent years. And so I wanted to say thank you for that.
Oh, fantastic. Everyone watching, I have been talking to the stunningly beautiful, multi-talented and inspirational Akeisha Pagan. As I say, I'll put a link to Akeisha's business website in the description box below. Thank you for watching. This has been one of the most enjoyable and warm and just lovely conversations with Kate that I've had. Akeisha, I hope to speak to you again very soon. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.